Hey everybody out there in Internet's land, it's me, Francis7. Whoops, sorry. And in today's Gmax Extra, we're going to be talking a little bit about the collision mesh. We're going to be talking a whole lot about LODs, and those are levels of detail, and how they actually work, and how they're going to be the bane of their model building experience. And we're going to talk about putting your node in a box again. But this time we're going to show you how you can get the most bang for your buck with your submissions by selecting the correct master node and how to modify a node to meet your needs. All right. So let's start off with level of detail, LODs. They're confusing to a lot of people, but basically, when you're in there hanging out and you're holding a drink like I'm doing right now, you'll see I'm holding this drink in my hand. It's got a certain number of polygons in it. Well, if you're standing way, way far away, like 60 meters away from me, you don't need to see all that detail because it's not going to render on your screen. But when you're up close, you want to see a whole lot of detail, and you don't want it to look bad. So that's what levels of detail are. They're triggered at a certain number of meters away from an object. You suddenly switch from one model to another. And that's why all the models in there have really three, or if you're on a hoverboat, four levels of detail. First off, let's take a look at them. First off, LOD 0. No, it's not the hula girl talking. It's still me. But the LOD 0, and this is a knickknack of their knickknack, and it's the example model. So I took it and I've split it into its component parts. LOD has the most number of polygons possible, and so it's the best level of detail. And for this model, we've made her about twice as big as she normally is. As we move over, you can check out LOD1. When you're so many meters away from your knickknack, and I think it's about 15, it switches to this lower resolution polygon model. You notice the hands are sort of flat and there's not as much detail on it. It's sort of simplified, and the base, if you notice, is different. And when you get X number of meters away from that, it switches to this. Once again, when you're way, 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 way far away, that level of detail is probably okay. You'd have to be actually farther than that to see it. But that's LOD2. Now, a lot of people build their models to save frustration to the LOD1 specifications. That way, your LOD0 and your LOD1 will look the same, and your object won't appear to jump or move or get sort of cruddy as you go away. On the other hand, that's sort of a limited number of polygons. All the roads in Legoland are built to, for the most part, LOD2, for example, so they look the same distance from, and they don't jump and they don't change when you're looking at them. But that's a fairly simple object. It's a road. Oh yeah, and the collision mesh. The collision mesh is basically the object that keeps you from walking through walls, like I was doing at the beginning of this video. As you can see, I didn't build the wall of my building too well. So those are basically the levels of detail. And now we'll get into Gmax and we'll start talking about how you actually put your model together with these. Alright, so here we go. We're in Gmax, and this is an old model that I made, I think, in about 2006, and I made it rather quickly, and I can't exactly remember who was it that wanted a washing machine now, but somebody wanted one of these, and I said, well, what's the point of washing clothes when your clothes never get dirty? But regardless of that, somebody wanted one, so I've made one, and it was kind of it sold a few copies over the year, and basically, when I'm looking at it now, I see I used way too many polygons that I really didn't need to use at all. To make the washing sort of opening part stick out far. So here's what we're going to do. First off, we're going to change that. So I'm going to right click and convert to editable mesh. I'm going to go grab the vertice tool and I'm going to fix this thing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a box around just the ones that I'm going to need to fix. These really aren't visible. They're stuck inside the washing machine, and so why bother to have them this way? What I'll do is I'll drag them back here into the washing machine so you can see how that's going to look. It's still going to look about the same on the outside. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down and I'm going to weld all these vertices together and basically make it into a cone. That'll cut the number of polygons in that side of the cylinder in half, the round part of the cylinder in half, and get rid of one end and at about half the number of vertices on that one end. So we're going to say select and weld this within, this is only a 1 meter object, so I'll say one and say selected. And then basically what I ended up with is basically one vertice at the end and a whole bunch of single triangular polygons, as opposed to sort of rectangular shapes which were made up of 2 polygons. So that'll save a bunch. I'll do the exact same thing with the other LOD over here. Let's grab this one and convert to editable mesh. Get the polygon tool. Once again, that's the little dots. Drawing a box around the ones I want to grab, stretching them back in about here. And I already said 1 meter on the welding tool, so I'll just click the selected button and off it goes. And now I've welded that, and that should really cut down on the number of both verts and polygons. That's pretty cool. And the other LOD actually just has the face of the round circle sort of just there. So, but that's not visible for a long ways off. LODs, once again, are the level of detail. I think this one over here is, if I click on this little rainbow tool, I can see what the name of the object is, and this happens to be LOD1, and that would make the yellow one over here LOD0. And they do have to be named that. So, by the way, I don't think you have to have a capital L in LOD. And I think you do need to have it as the one with the 0 have a 0 there. So it's just the naming convention. All right, and now we're ready to merge in our master node, link all these items to the master node, and basically, you know, put a node in this box. So here we go. Putting your node in a box. So we go to the File menu, and at this point you have to have all the there items installed, the tool kits and what have you, and we're going to merge. And you have to have the models uncompressed, and we're basically going to say, we're going to go File and Merge, and I got to find my way, and I like to use a particular master node in all of my models, and then change it to meet the needs of what I need to submit. So for example, I usually use the ones in the furniture builder. A lot of people start with a shop node. I always start with the node that has one of the cheapest wholesales, which happens to be the node that comes with the table. This is a glass table is the name of the model, and it's in furniture builder, and it is a very simplistic item. And when I click on that, it'll show you, here's the tree of this is the glass table tree. And these are the objects in the glass table. They're not the one in your model, but basically you can see that the table, which is named table, some of the root nodes have really strange names, but this one's pretty normal. Basically, and then each of these items, the collision mesh, LOD0, LOD1, and LOD2, those are children of the parent, the master node, and you can tell that because they're indented sort of to the right. So the root node is going to be the one up at the top, and by the way, it should have this check mark marked display subtree already marked when you do this. But if not, it's the one that's the master node. It's not LOD, and it's not a collision, and it's not a sit node either. I think if you have a chair, you know, it would have a sit node there, but we don't want to merge a chair. Yeah, okay. Anyway, so we say okay, and it merges this object in. It doesn't really add anything to your count. It's like what's called a dummy node, and so basically it's just there. It does, however, have to fit inside your object. So I'm going to go ahead and use the resize tool and go and grab my object. I'm going to shrink it down so that it will fit inside the object. Now, if you're making something that's like very two-dimensional, what you can do is add a large flat polygon on the ground in LOD2 and just link it to LOD2. You don't even have to texture it. And if it covers the width and depth of this thing, and your model's taller than this thing, you're probably fine. If you shrink this thing down way too far, you probably get an error when you export it about welding verts in the master node. And just to let you know, that's not a huge deal. I usually like to keep this thing at ground level. And here's one more tip you're going to need to know. Let's take a look. This is the top view. It is indeed the top view. And when you take the object out of your inventory from the top view, you are standing in front of it. So this is going to be you. This is going to be your enormous nose. That looks wrong. Let's try that again. All right, so this is going to be you, and this is your head, and you're looking in this direction. There we go, that's better. And your arm comes out this way and holds onto the thing, facing this side of the node. If there's some reason that you want an object to come out at facing you, like for positioning this object, you can put the master node. Could be in the corner, it could be in the front, it can be just about anywhere as long as it's inside the object. Once again, if you wanted to have it outside the object for some reason, like you want something that covers your avatar when you're holding on to it, don't know why you'd want that, but you could basically put an invisible polygon underneath it, link it to LOD2, no one will see it, and it'll cover that object. So anyhow, let's go ahead and learn how to link these things. First thing is I'm going to put, I don't want my washing machine to suddenly move around. I mean, if I left it this way, as you get further away, this one would appear, and as you walk further away, the one on the right would appear. We need to have all of our models in the same place. So I'll just click on them, and I'll use these coordinates. Oh, this one's already at X and Y 0. I'll go ahead and grab the next one over. And we'll put that one at the 0 location. And we'll go grab the other one. We'll put this one at the 0 location. And then I have this collision mesh. Now, collision meshes are something to think about. If you're making a knick-knack, you probably really don't want something you can stand on. I mean, if it's just a tiny little itsy-bitsy thing. That's a washing machine. Maybe you want your avatar to be able to jump up on top of it. But if you're doing something for like a knick-knack that's going to sit on a group seating in between people, like on a table, you don't really want to have a huge collision mesh on that knick-knack, because if you've ever sat in a group seating and somebody's dropped an object in front of you, it messes up your camera views. So here's something you can do. Number one, when you have a collision mesh, it's one of the things that their physics has to render, is it has to figure out collisions for all sides of this object. If you really don't need to stand on it, don't add as many collision polygons. You have to have one polygon. But for this sample, what I'm just going to do is I'm going to right-click, convert to editable mesh. I'm going to grab the vertice tool over here. That's once again the little dots. And I'm just going to select the top verts in my model that's right here. And then I'm going to hit, I think it's delete. Yeah. And then basically what I'm left with, it's invisible from this side. But if I was to look at it from the bottom, you'd be able to see there's still a polygon, actually 2 polygons there. I could get rid of one more, but I don't think I will. Anyhow, so basically I'll grab this, I got to right click on it. It's tough to right click on, hang on, maybe I'll grab it from the bottom. Sometimes once you make two-sided shapes, it's hard to do that. So let's right click on it, convert to editable mesh. Good. Okay, now that I've converted to editable mesh, I can put it back at the 0 location, so now it's at 0. Now I've got my entire model all set up and ready to go, except all 3 models are distinct and separate, and they need to be linked to the master node. This is the miracle of making models for there that that so confuses people, and then they give up because they don't really understand how to do this. We've made our 3 models to be seen from different distances, and now we are going to link them together. So what we do is we take the 4 arrow tool, which is right up here, the movement tool, and we're going to draw a box around all of our models except for the master node. So I'll just grab everything here except the master node. Now one problem is you may not actually get that polygon on the bottom because it is indeed sort of two-dimensional, and so you might want to grab this like from the front. For example, if I drew a box like this, that would grab all the objects for sure. Now you can also double check and make sure you've grabbed all the objects by using this tool right up here. We're going to use this one a lot, and I forget what it's called now. Let me point at it, and it'll tell me it's select by name. We click select by name, and it'll show you all the things you've highlighted. I've highlighted the collision mesh, LOD0, LOD1, and LOD2. Yes, welcome to the anal retentive Gmax building class. All right, and the only one I don't have selected is table, which is my master node. This is exactly what I want. I say cancel because I'm just checking with this. I'm not actually gluing something together. We don't glue them together. It's not like gluing objects together. What we're going to do is we're going to go up and we're going to use this tool right up here. This is the link tool. And we've already highlighted everything we're going to link. So now we just need to say what to link to. Now, if you're very good with your mouse, you probably could click on the master node in there, but since it's inside the object, that might be a little tricky. So what we'll do is we'll go back up to the select by name tool. That's once again this one with a list and the arrow. And we'll go, and in this box, there should only be one thing visible. If you got more than one thing visible, you've done something wrong, you named something wrong, you didn't select something. Probably didn't select something. And I'm going to click on table. That's our master node, and I've clicked on it. And then down at the bottom, instead of saying OK, I think it says link. So we click the link button, and boom. it's linked to the master node. Now, we're still, unfortunately, in the linking tool, and we need to get out of that so we don't accidentally try and link it to itself. And what we do is we go over and we click on the 4-arrow tool, the movement tool, and then we go back and check our handiwork by using the list tool, and we click on that again. And it basically looks the same. We've got the three things selected. That's because down here is the magical box, display subtree, and you need to have a check mark in there. So we click the check mark. Aha! Check it out. You should now have a master node, which is, a master node which is indented. Well, actually not indented. It's sort of over to the left. But your collision, your LOD 0, LOD 1, and LOD 2, and they should be in this order, by the way. If you put a space, or if they're not in collision 0, 1, and 2, you probably named one of them wrong, and you definitely want to go back and fix that. Otherwise, you may end up having your LOD 0 show up when you're far away. That's something you want to test in Previewer. All right, but once you've got this looking this way, you're ready. You say cancel, because we're not actually doing anything. We're just checking here. Definitely want to save your model at this point. I'm going to go save as, and give it another number on the end. Maybe I'll add the word final in here, but we're not really finalized yet. We need to make sure it actually works. And then I'm going to go to the File menu where I'm going to say Export. Now, export will only work, once again, if you've got the toolkit for there installed. And I didn't actually get export because I was zoomed in. So let me try it again. Export. All right, and basically, if everything is working well, you should see Save as File Type. And there's only a couple choices under here. And the one you want should be, by default, coming up. Their model exporter, which is a .model file. Model files are the actual thing that appears in World. You can retexture them later. You can retexture them later in the previewer, but you can't modify them. So you definitely want to save before you go to export. And we're going to name this Test Washer 1. Test Washer 1. Test Washer 1. That sounds good. And you need to make sure it's saved in the right folder. In this case, it's not. It's saving into this Gmax mesh folder, which is not where I want it to go. I have a specific folder, and that I'm going to name it to. Also, there's some issues with older previewers, I know, of saving it with a really long path name. So I usually keep my stuff on the C drive or just on the desktop, and I don't usually leave it there for long. But basically not a good idea to have a whole lot of files, I guess, on your desktop. Anyhow, what I'm going to go to do is save this into the washing machine folder, and we're going to name it Test Washer 1, and I'm going to save it in there. And now I'm ready to try it out in Previewer. And I've had to find another video recording program in order to make this thing work. So let's go ahead and get through this quickly. Under the File menu is Open. Here's our test washer model that we've created. It seems to load just fine. There's no error messages. It looks good. So we're probably on the right track here. We go to Materials. And under Materials, you're going to select, well, your textures. This particular object only has one texture. This will bring up the material window. Top one is going to be where our cute little picture of our washing machine is going to go. If you had an opacity map or a cutout or something like that for, like, I don't know, a candelabra or something, and you weren't using a texture transparency, this is where that would have gone. Back in the old days, we had to use that a lot. Down here, more important, is affected by light. If this is unchecked, your object's going to glow in the dark. And if you have an object nobody sees the inside of, and you're not using like two-dimensional planes, you might as well uncheck two-sided, because, well, you don't need to have a texture on the inside of your object. Anyway, affected by light, if it's not checked, it's going to glow in the dark. So here, let's go ahead and get our texture. Here's our washing machine. Looks pretty good. We click Apply, and there is our washing machine. Looks pretty good. You can go through the light menu. You can say much light. Here it's really bright. Or you can say little light, which is usually where I leave it, because I want to make sure things don't suddenly glow in the dark. And each texture is specific, so you can have some textures on your model glowing in the dark and others not. Also, if you want to play around with animation, it's this little tab right here. On each texture has its own animation, but you can only have 2 animations going on in a model, at least that I know of. And we could, like, for example, make this scrolling, make the speed 1, and say Apply, and oh my, the washing machine's melting all over itself there in the corner. What was in that orange juice? Oh, well, anyway, maybe we don't want it animated. We can say none from the type menu. We can say, oh, I've zoomed in too far. And I say none, and I say apply, and it puts it right back. Now we don't have an animated washing machine anymore. Okay, so next step is to submit it to there. So we go to the file menu, and this is where things get a little bit iffy. Maybe it's going to be different. Who knows? But previously, with the old tools I'm using, we had a really beautiful picture of the village marketplace and a fairly nice picture of Chaz standing in front of it. There he is right there. He's wearing a really nice World Builder shirt. Used to be the symbol for the developer program. Probably is, still is. And we click next. At this screen, it's going to show you all your textures, and if you have some of them that have like a bad icon or you don't see a picture of your texture there, there can be some real problems going on. Am I going to help you with those? No, not really. Anyhow, we're going to click next, and at the next screen you'll see all the possible things that you could submit it as. Right now, as a furniture, I can make it a cabinet 1 or a cabinet 2, or the animated ones. You probably should be using an animated texture if you're going to use one of those, because they charge you an arm and a leg for animation. Screen 1, screen 2. Oh, and there's Floral Builder and Construction Builder if I click the plus. Floral Builder is usually pretty good, and Construction Builder, and I happen to know what this is going to come out as because I've done this like 7 times now. Oh, Tree. Tree is great. Tree is cheap. So I'm going to take a look at Tree, and I click Details. And when you click on an item and click Details, oh, I got to show you this. This is real important first. Down at the bottom is this little checkbox. It says only show product types valid for this submission. This type, this submission. Okay, well, anyway, if you uncheck that, it'll show you what's wrong with all these other things. Like, for example, why can't it be furniture builder? Why can't it be a knick-knack? Let's say knick-knack config 1. That's in red. So this shows me all the different possibilities, and then I'll click on details, and it'll show me what's wrong with it. Oh, the LOD distance is wrong. Okay, so I could submit it as, well, that's 550 wholesale, but I could submit it as a knick-knack if I wanted to. All I need to do is change the distances, and we are going to cover changing the distances. I'm going to go ahead and check that box again, go back to Floral Builder, and go back to Tree. And under the details on this, I know that, for example, a wholesale cost, and that's why they probably put it at the top of this list, because this is the most important thing you look for. How much is going to cost wholesale? Yeah, that's what the developers are interested in. 400T. Okay, now here's some other things, though. We used a a table node, a glass table furniture node. It was what we put in there, and that the nodes contain the draw distances. For example, this object will show LOD until you are 50 meters away. At 50 meters away, it automatically switches to LOD1, and you will be able to see LOD1 until you're 100 meters away. And then LOD2 is going to kick in until you're 350 meters away, and at 350 meters, your object goes poof and disappears, and it's gone. But the actual thing we put in our object, which this column is the actual object. This is the things that you have done in this column over here. So in this case, the node that we picked only had a 25-meter draw distance. It was meant to be seen inside houses and not outdoors. So its draw distances need to be changed to 50, 100, and 350. And now we're going to go ahead and maybe even just close out of here, because we're going to have to revise our model, and might as well just say goodbye to this, and we'll revise our model next. Okay, so here we are back in Gmax, and the first thing you're going to need to do is probably get your arrow tool and click off your objects, because most likely they were still selected from before. We're going to click on our root node, which we put in the middle of our object, and then we're going to right click on it, and we're going to select Properties. Yeah, oh, never mind. All right, here there's a general tab that's going to come up first, and then there's the user defined tab, which is what we're interested in. So all the things we're going to change are in user defined. You don't have to worry about the other thing at all. And we are going to change this, and right now you can see here are the draw distances that we have: 25 meters, 50, and 200. But we get larger draw distances with this object, so I'm going to put in 50, 100, and I'm hoping I'm doing this right. I think it was 350 was the other one. Now, once again, if you want to come in and play with a model, like make a monster that pops out of a flower when you get in a couple meters, this is where you do it. And you say, okay. And basically, we've just changed that one thing. Now, you could, of course, just delete that node and merge in another master node of the type you want, if you find that to be easier. I found this to be a lot easier. Next thing, I'm going to go save as. I'm going to give this a different number. We'll make this number 7 here. No, actually, I have one named 7. Okay, we'll name it number 8. There we go. And we're going to go to the File menu where we're going to select Export again. It's important that we export it again because we've made this change. So we go File and Export. Make sure it's exporting it to the right folder. Once again, if you notice, I'm not saving it to the right file. Mine was out on the desktop in a folder called Gmax class, and then I had this thing in a folder called Washing Machine. I'm going to name it Final something, like Final Washing Machine 77, just for good luck there or something. Make sure that it is exporting it as their model. I spelled washing machine wrong. It doesn't really matter. But I use the word final because when I come back later, maybe I'm going to want to repaint this model, and I don't want to have to go searching for it. So I use numbers like that. Okay, so now back to the previewer. Here we are back in Previewer again, where I am going to go to the File menu and open up this new one. And this was called Final Washing Machine 77 for good luck. Here it is. Basically, it's the same model. The only thing we've changed is those draw distances. I'm going to apply the texture again really quickly here. I'm not going through a whole lot of other things. Make sure that it's still not glowing in the dark. Under the File menu, I'm going to go to Submit to There. And click on Next. And then I should see the washing machine texture looks good. And this is going to be a tree. Now, because of the draw distances, I changed them. My choices are now more limited. That's one of the reasons for using the table, because its draw distances are pretty small and more things are compatible with it. And so anyway, I'm going to select tree, and I click on next, and then I give it a name like washing machine version 2. Why are you buying this? Your clothing never gets dirty in there. Well, thank you for your money. Anyhow, moo. Ha 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 ha. Okay, and then you can load up a catalog image. Catalog images have to be a specific size that's mentioned on the website. And then you would click Next. I can't show you the submission process because at the time I'm recording this video, we can't actually do that. So this is as far as we go from here. And now back for some closing comments. And that basically wraps up another Gmax Boot Camp by Francis 7 Extras video. I hope you learned an awful lot about LODs and linking them together, and hopefully some tricks that'll save you some time and hopefully frustration as you build models for there.com. Until next time, I'm Francis 7, still remaining me. Yeah, that sounds kind of lame. Oh well. Bye-bye now.